Right, so we've got some beautiful, beautiful frosty garden, foliage images here to kind of, just represent in our own way. And that's what I will say. Same as anything else when we're doing these, when we're having a go with these sessions, just all about experimenting, getting to grips with the materials as well. You may not have used them very often, or it might be different paper that you've got. So we're really just experimenting, exploring, getting used to the papers and the pastels that we're using as well. And if you've done this regularly, again, you can still explore with your colours. With pastels, one of the things is often in a set, we have a limited colour set. And it's actually fine that we do because it encourages us to be a little bit more brave with colour because quite often with pastels, we end up having to go for a best fit because there isn't perhaps the exact colour that we're after. So we do end up, I think, being a little bit more brave perhaps with our colours and sometimes, or actually quite often, use a colour combination we would never use normally because if we're mixing the colours, we try and be more accurate with it. And quite often then it just works out beautifully because you think, oh wow, I really like that. I would never have put that together with that. So I really like pastels for being kind of, exploring a lot. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to I just don't need to use that. All I'm going to do, because what we'll do is we'll use the layered approach in the same way we do with acrylics. So we're going to, each section, we're looking starting right at the back and we're layering up. So here, we won't get any of these twigs in until we've got the background in, because those come on top of the background. And with each bit of the background here, each of the areas we tend to work dark to light. So I'm going to start with the sky because, and again, it's down to interpretation, but to me, this feels like some kind of a hedgerow here. So I'm going to get this, if that's how I'm interpreting, I'm going to get the sky in first, but within that sky, those beautiful colours coming through, and obviously the sun coming through as well. What I'm actually going to do is even start with the slightly darker ones, like the ones that are a little bit more orangey on there. So all I'm going to do to start with is if you get a slightly lighter pastel, but use it nice and lightly so it's not, so you don't have so you can move the marks because we can move these. And just all I'm going to do is just put a little line about whereabouts I'm going to put these different colours. I might just put a little bit where that sun might be coming through the hedgerow there. And you don't have to stick with this line. That's why I said if you make it really light, you can just then blend it out. And that's just to kind of separate out some of the colours. You can change these as you go. I have got my bit of paper because it's quite handy to test, certainly with the pastels, because they often don't come out of the block quite the same. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at this sky area first and start to bring out some of these slightly brighter dark, colours. Now, I think again, this is brighter than I would normally go for, but what we can do once we've explored applying it, so we've got a bit of separate paper that's similar to the one you've got, like even if it's the edge or something or the back of it, you can just try smudging it on like that. And then what we can actually do is you can look at layering up. Now, because these two, so I could use another one slightly over the top that's lighter in a similar tone to get something nearer to that if I want to. Okay, which is what I am going to do actually because I found that quite intense because my only other orange is really bright like this, which is fine if you want to go in with that colour, but I didn't. So I'm going to just use a combination of these two to start with, and then I'm going to bring in some other lighter colours on top. Now, if these were different colours, so if these two that I'm layering up, if you had, say, a cooler colour underneath and then you were trying to put yellow over the top, we'd have to be very careful because what we can end up doing is over mixing it and making the colours muddy. So if we've got dark colours in there and then we go in with bright colours or light colours, that can muddy the colours in the background. That's something that can happen. So we're trying to keep these colours nice and fresh. So for example, this one is quite dark in places. We'd want to fix that in and quite, get that fixed in. And then the colours over the top, we'd put more pressure on with our pastel to get these and then very softly blend it over the top so it doesn't make it a muddy kind of mush. So every layer we put on top, we want to be a bit, put more pressure on and be lighter with our blending, especially if they're opposite colours. Now, if they are similar tones, like this one's similar as well, like they're all warm and they're all kind of in an orange palette or yellows, then we can mix them a little bit more. It's not quite as, it's not quite the same. So the other element we've got thrown in here is this blended. So this is a little bit, you've got more linear things going on here. That's beautiful as well. So you might want to just kind of smudge things down a bit. But here, yeah, we might just want to kind of blend that. And the same here. I've got some tones I'm going to put in, but we want to make it, if we're wanting it to be in the background, we want it to be a little bit out of focus. I'll show you how we can do that with some techniques. So I'm first of all going to go in, I'm going to get some of these slightly darker spaces. Now, it'll look a bit childlike, that's fine. I'm going to go in with some of these slightly brighter colours in. It won't change until later on in the session because we're going to be layering up and pretty much it'll look like just a lot of different colours to start with. But when we start layering over, it'll transform very, very late on actually. So just have faith that it'll be okay, it'll work out. So I'm trying to layer over here where I feel just where the slightly darker colours are. And we're just making that up really just by what we can see. And I'm trying to get a fairly good covering of pastel on there. So I'm using my pastel on its side. With landscapes, you get a nice good coverage, of colour by using the pastel on its side. And then I'm fixing that into place as we go. Sometimes if you leave the chalk on the top, and then you just kind of chalking it over and not fixing it, it moves off the page quite easily. So just keep going and popping this in where you feel, your darker colours are going to go. You might not know exactly, but I'm going to lighten this up a little bit anyway. So I'm bringing this up. I might also bring it where I feel that maybe it's going, for example, underneath one of the branches. That's what I'm seeing anyway, but just see what you think. And we're just smudging out the edges a little bit. If you're wanting more depth and brightness, you need to layer up a little bit more pastel. What will happen at some point is that your page will reach capacity or reach saturation point, and it might start to lift off again. In that case, it's like, okay, I can't put that much on. That's where I stop. But you won't know that until you actually do it. So it's nothing to be worried about. It's actually, I'd say, a learning curve because it shows us with our paper how much we can pop on. And the only way of finding that out is by actually putting a little bit too much on. Everybody kind of does that, so it's okay. Because then when you do your next bit, you think, oh, I just won't put quite as much on next time. So I'm just fixing this down with my pad of my finger. If you've got gaps showing through, you might want to layer it up a little bit more, unless you're happy for those gaps to show through. Because you can, that's absolutely fine. So I'm popping this in. And as you can see, what I'm doing a little bit now is bringing these colours down a bit. So where this moon is, sun coming through the hedgerows in this interesting shape, I'm just going to place some bits. I'm going to use some of the purple to come through, but I'm going to layer over anyway. I'm not going to leave this colour, but I'm getting a dark colour underneath. Quite often, it's quite good to put your dark ones in because then we get a contrast and it really shows up more brightly when we put the other colour over the top. So as you can see, it's looking really childlike at the minute. But that's fine. Shouldn't say childlike, should I? But you know, it's a bit more simplistic, is what I meant, really. So bring some of these colours down. Okay. So when I've got my variety, you know, the ones that are a little slightly darker, and this goes for whichever sky you're doing, whether it's this one or this one. That one obviously has got blues, but you're going with your darker blues. You might put some, you know, different tones in there. It might be underneath. You've got some, you know, soft kind of reddy brown, reddy colours in there. But just keep exploring. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to soften this down by putting a little bit of this paler chalk over the top, just ever so slightly. And as I said before, it's not going to be a problem to put to mix these together because they're very similar tones. They're both warm. If you've got a very dark pastel under there, then it'd be wise just to give your fingers a wipe off in between. So say you've gone from a brown colour to a red or something, or an orange, then make sure your fingers are clean because that you can transfer some of the muddy colours. And as I said, I think really with the key with pastels is keeping your colours vibrant and bright or clear. So I'm still going over here because even though these are dark, I'm still wanting to make them slightly lighter. So I'm smudging these in. So again, we've just got lots of lines in the sky at the minute. It's going to change again shortly.